So we're on phase 2. I think this is like take 5. So if you recall, we started out looking at the tub behind me. I showed you what I do, how I water change this thing, what's in it. And then I showed you my green water bucket on the right and my brine shrimp bucket on the left. The outdoor brine shrimp just still blows me away. Now there's brine shrimp all over in there. Then I showed you this 20-gallon inside my office with the royal whiptails, the green jade shrimp, lots of ram's horn snails, and some peppered cories, and sport my betta and the giant leaf pile. And then I showed you this little 5-gallon, it's called a 5-gallon Marineland Portrait. It's got on the back here, on the back there, it's got that tape to block off. There's a wall in the back with the filtration behind it. So it really cuts it down to about 3.5 gallons of usable space, and then at least a gallon's gone with the substrate there. But it's a cool little tank. It's gone through a couple iterations. I've got these lyre type mollies in it right now. I think I'd like to put some shrimp in here as well. And I showed you my little 12-inch cube out here in the living room, and I'm realizing I'm not wearing my microphone, so this is going to sound different than everything else. Oh well, I'm not going to reshoot it now. But it's a cool little tank. It's got pygmy cories, it's got a couple glow light tetras, it's got Penelope von Schweetz, the betta, and a bunch of neocaradinas, red neocaradinas. And then I showed you the kitchen tank with the albino cories, and there's a couple autocinklus, a couple clown plecos, and just a few neon tetras left. They were 2.5 years, almost 3 years old now, since that I've had them, and they've dwindled. A few have jumped over the over the years, and a bunch of red cherry shrimp in here. So I got to find some more fishies to put in here. And then I showed you the tanks here on the workbench side of the garage. Right, the one with the neon orange swordtails and a bunch of red cherry shrimp, a couple autocinklus, green emerald cories, and a couple giant plecosauruses. And the tank down below with the bronze cories. There's autocinklus in here. There's a whole bunch of blue dream shrimp, and there's also a whole bunch of green dragon plecos in here. And then these two tubs down below. The one on the right has my blackworm colony. The one on the left, there's just a couple guppies and a bunch of water lettuce and a betta, male betta. Not much else going on there. I got to figure out something to do with that. And then also my snail tub here. Look at all the snails at the top. I'm not sure if it was not enough oxygen or what, but all these snails that they jumped to their deaths. Anyway, and then on the top here, there's my 20 long with peacock gudgeons. There's stir-by cories. There's this guy. I don't know that I got a name for him or not. If I do, I can't remember what it is. That's good fish keeping, huh? I love the look of this tank from looking through the water up underneath in the reflection. It's one of my favorite views. And then this is where I ended up putting all my guppy grass, and I've got some sponge filters just hanging in there. And when I cleaned out a couple of my hang-on back filters with these aquarium co-op pre-filters, there's a dead shrimp in there, got stuck in there. I pulled out a bunch of little cherry shrimp in here, so maybe some ended up in this tank, so I'll have red cherry shrimp in that tank as well. And I think I'm going to put some mixed platies in that tank that I got from Jason at 5-Star Betta. And I've still got this 10-gallon I got to figure out what to do with. And I showed you guys this supposed to be female tuxedo guppies, and obviously some were gravid. Now I got a whole bunch. I got to sort that tank. And then Bob and Carol's tank. And I've added a couple plants to it. I took all the guppy grass out. There's still bits and pieces floating around I got to fish out. So it's a work in progress. And then we're back to this. So here we are where we left off, essentially on the rack side here. All right. And then the 75-gallon tank back there. And that's where we're going to pick up. I'll show you what I do there. It's different than the way I treat the other tanks, the way I drain it, the way I fill it. And also in this part, I will show you how I modify sponge filters. Now I learned this once upon a time. It was either from Nick Keeping Fish Simple or Adrian from Adrian's Fishroom, or both, I don't remember. And I just saw Adrian redo it on one of his videos, so I thought I'd redo it on one of mine, because I know most of you probably don't watch Adrian, so, and I'm crediting him, so I'm not really stealing it. I'm just borrowing it and sharing it on. And I don't think he'd mind. He's a pretty good guy. So anyway, here we go. the rack here, and that's next. And that'll be these 429 gallons. There's one back to back there. I guess it'd actually be two, wouldn't it? Two back to back there, two back to back here. A couple 5 gallons, one down there, one above, and then the 520. And we'll talk about those as we do them. So I guess we can pick up where we left off. And this one is with my crebensis, and these are the offspring of Bob and Carol, the two albinos. Half the offspring. The other half of the offspring are in the tank behind them, and they are albinos. So this tank's just rocks, and I've got a couple plants floating in it, and some massive pothos, and a little bit of dwarf water lettuce that is just hanging. It's not doing well. That'll probably end up coming out. But the pothos sure seems happy. And this is, I think this is, oh my gosh, I can't remember. It's cryptocoryne. It's either Eusteriana or Poniderafolia. And it's just sand and gravel under there. I got this massive lava bomb, just this big chunk of lava, and I picked it up in Bullhead City, Arizona, and I set it on a couple rocks because I knew these guys were going to dig under it so they couldn't bury themselves. They've dug, and I think they've even spawned once or twice, but there's so many in here, and I sell them off once in a while by the pair, and I'd like to get it down where there's just maybe a pair in here, or if I got rid of them all together, that'd be cool too. Kind of start over and clean stuff up, you know? Once in a while, we just need to do something different, I suppose. But yeah, and this one's kind of rough to take apart because I had to sort of teeter this tank out of here to get that rock in there. Obviously, it won't go through this little space, and it's really heavy, and I didn't have any help to do that. I had my little rolly cart under it just in case it slipped. It would slip into the cart. But anyway, I'm going to, water changing on this side now. So anyway, let me shut this off. Remember, I'm shutting that off so as not to break the siphon, and then pull it out. I don't know if you saw that, it drains back out. It's always a good idea. Doesn't really matter right here, but it's always a good idea to drain pickup tubes. Water stores in it when you pull it out, not paying attention to draining water all over the place. So anyway, this was 5 gallons with guppies and a little betta and ramshorn snails. I want to get rid of all the guppies, I think. I've got another tank down below, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So here we are. I took a bunch of the guppy grass out of these 3 tanks, and I put it in the 20, like I said. And I'll build a sponge filter, and I'll show you how I modify one. We'll put that in here, one of the big sponge filters. And there may or may not be, there's ramshorn snail. Shrimp, probably should treat for snails again. I treated all my tanks with something called no planaria. So I had this massive bladder snail problem. Took care of those in a heartbeat. Doesn't do so much for ramshorn. Although they tell you, if you read online, not to do it with snails you value. I don't value ramshorn snails particularly. But I mean, mystery snails or some of the others that people like for decorative type snails. Want to be careful with using no planaria. They suggest taking it out of the tank. Now, I had ramshorns in this tank down here, along with bladder snails. And I treated this tank. Got rid of all the bladder snails, and I treated a second time because there were still ramshorn snails. I don't know, a month later, I saw a bunch of dead ramshorn shells on the bottom of the tank, empty ramshorn shells. In fact, there's one there, and there's some more back in there, and there's a big live one right there on the pot. So, it killed some of them. I don't know if it killed the eggs off or not. Probably not. It works for bladder snails, but be cautious with other snails. That's no planaria. Maybe or maybe not shrimp will show up in this that were in the guppy grass. I wouldn't be at all surprised. There might even be little bitty guppies, and I'll show you those in just a second. And when I cleaned this filter again, because I showed you how impacted it got in 48 hours, there were little tiny shrimpies that had gotten through again through that coarse sponge filter, the pre-filter. I left about an inch of water in one of these 2-gallon buckets with all the filter gravy, and I just dump it in here. And so, yeah, it turned this all brown and sludgy briefly. But it seems to settle out, and then it seems like most of it goes away. I don't know if the snails, feed on that malmy stuff or what. But anyway, there's going to be lots of little shrimpies in here too, because that's where I dump them when they're too tiny, too much time to try and separate them out. So instead of killing them, I'll put them in there. And as they get bigger, I can fish them out, figure out what color they are, put them back in the tanks from whence they supposed to have come. Now, this is that guppy tank. I don't know if you can see all the little guppies on the surface there. There's a yellow one in here somewhere. Yeah, that's, no, not that snakeskin looking thing. Those are results of the yellow ones and whatever females. Females were just fancies. So, I got these snake skins. A lot of the male snake skins that I spent time fishing out, I put up here, and then I dropped that little betta in because she was getting picked on by these clowns. And these are all brothers and sisters, by the way. These are the wild type mollies that you can't see. I'll put a hang-on filter to help clear this. I pulled all that guppy grass out. There's who says that? A patented LRB rock pile about halfway down this side of the tank. And the guppy grass was well rooted in that, and it stirred up a lot of sediment. This is the tank I had that Echinodoris in the Talenti pot for, God, I don't know, 6 months or so. and the one that's out in the tub right now flowering. So that lives out there. And then this tank here had Blue Dream shrimp in it. I don't know if there's any left or not. I don't know why they would have disappeared. There's a couple little plecosauruses, little common plecos, and pandacories on a stream one day or one night. And I don't remember if it was a Jeff Pelham Aquatics Addicts Anonymous stream or one of my streams. Roxanne, Foxy's Fishes, and Brian Peplin Creek Aquatics were, in the chat, and we were talking about pandacories and trying to get them to breed. And Roxanne suggested throw a spawning mop in and make sure there's good current. So I had the hang-on filter in here for a very long time, and I think what I'll do now that I got most of the guppy grass out and I'll finish fishing it out, I'll put a little power head on here. I've got to fix the sponge filter down there because the line keeps popping free. That black aquarium tubing gets really hard and it just separates itself. And so there is a string, a yarn, what do you call them, a yarn spawning mop in the back right corner. That was one of Roxanne's suggestions. So I did that. It's been sitting back there. A few weeks ago, I was doing a water change, and there should be 10 adult pandas here. Next thing I know, I saw, I think, 4 little bitty ones coming out swimming around. I just saw one a little bit ago. And naturally, it's not going to come out. It's going to make a liar out of me because you're all here and they're not. But when I start refilling this, maybe that'll draw them out. But anyway, there's nothing in here really. There's a Amazon sword, and there's bits and pieces of Java fern that I throw in all the time, and I see a little of that nasty hair algae, so I'll reach in and pull that out. There may be some crypts in the back. I don't remember now. I'll figure that out when I fish out more of the guppy grass. But this tank was so impacted with guppy grass. So is this tank. So is this tank. Fish couldn't get around. So I thought, I'm just getting it out of these tanks, and we'll go with the guppy grass in kind of like a guppy grass farm tank. And maybe someday I'll just get a tub for it because, people like it. I sell it. It's good for me. It's good for them. This is the guppy tank. So there's all kinds of weird guppies in here now. And a couple auto sinkless. And I really like autos. I would love to be able to spawn those. And there should be, and there's a couple, orange sunkissed shrimp, orange sunkissed neocaridina. And this tank was absolutely full. And the numbers have dwindled, and maybe all the guppies are just eating the little offspring. Another reason to get rid of all these guppies. This last tank on the end here, there's some platies in here. There's some mixed platies I got from Jason 5-Star Beta. They've spawned, so now there's more platies. And there's yellow goldenback neocaridina shrimp in here that are doing really well. So I should probably get the fish out of there. Maybe I'll put these platies in that tank with all the guppy grass because I don't need them competing with these yellow shrimp. And I was watching, I don't remember, maybe it was a Mark Shelley video about not having fish in with your shrimp because they're going to pick off the little shrimpies. And, it makes good sense. And I think I've got to start working on that. And I think that's what I'm going to do is pull the platies out of here and put them in that other tank. I've got to get a sponge filter going in there. I've got to put dechlor in that tank with the guppy grass now. And you know what? I'm rethinking that now because I reserved that right. I might just put the platies in this tank over, because there are some wild type mollies in here and they might just work out all right. And then take all these guppies. Do I want to do that? Put them in that 20 gallon with the guppy grass and leave this tank with just the autos. And it's an opening for some new cories, too. Then the guppies are up there. And I don't know why. It's a tank full of guppies that I never do anything with. So, I guess I could put them up. Are they mutt guppies? No, I don't like to call them that, though. But, yeah, mixed fancy guppies, for I don't know what figure out what eBay, what they'll go for on eBay. Or sell them on the Aquatics Addicts Anonymous auction next time. So, I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I reserve the right to do any of this stuff. That's a big catappa leaf. It was. So the shrimp do that, and so do the snails. The shrimp will skeletonize leaves in no time. So leaves are great in shrimp tanks. Just a handful of leaves. And I guess if I can get all the guppies out of here, I will put just a handful of leaves in the bottom of this tank. As well as, that's a piece of bird of paradise leaf, but banana leaves. Shrimp love banana leaves. And the bird of paradise leaves. I'm going to reshoot this part, stick it in right here. When I shot it the first time, there were 2 lengths of video I was trying to edit in. There was no sound. I don't know what I did. I think I turned on the microphone, but forgot to turn on the receiver. Oh, well, it happened. So anyway, we already saw this Crebensis tank, and I was talking about how heavy this lava bomb was and all the rock. My thing was if I ever had to pull fish out of here, and I have a couple times, I've got to take this whole rock pile out here because I can get to that, but there's no way to get that lava bomb out. And besides, and I like these guys a lot. They're cool fish. But I was thinking about maybe either taking this down to just a pair, a male and female, and then do what? Make babies and then do what? End up with the tank full of crebensis again. I don't know. That one's been up in the air for a while. I'm not quite sure what to do with it. Take this whole thing apart and start over with something completely different. I said that because, there's times we just need to change stuff up, I guess. They're fun. They're really cool little fish, really personable. I love watching them. They're colorful. The spots, the tail spots on the males, that big fat rosy colored belly on the female. I think I could pull a pair out of here. I think I've got a couple fish that have paired up. These might be two of them right here. Sorry about the glare. I know we always apologize for glare, like we have a lot of control over that, don't we? Or the noise of the fish tanks, like we should just shut it off. So I already talked about this tank a little bit with all these mixed fancies that I pulled up from the tank below here. I ended up taking them all up and putting them in this tank just to get them out of there. They were competing with the orange sunkissed shrimp down here, at least I think. And I think that's why the numbers dwindled so much. Oh, let me toss this in. Since I started this video, I ended up, yesterday, I got some Napoensis cories from Night Owl Aquatics. They're hiding in there. They're little. They're cute. So they're still hiding in there. I think there's one right under the wood right there. So I have to go find it. But anyway, yeah, new addition to the family. So that's kind of neat. And then this tank, and you heard me refer to them, I think a little bit ago, as clowns, bunch of clowns. They are. They're fun. They're silly. These are all brothers and sisters. And it's a mess. You saw the female inside, Vanellope von Schweet, in the last video. She's this kind of platinum color, and she's got this massive tumor on her. And most of these are just ridden with these big tumors. Look at this one. And it's just, I don't know, it just breaks my heart. They seem like they're just still living their best lives. This tank started leaking not too long ago, right down here. It's where the water was coming out. I came out here from, out of the house into the garage, and there was a huge puddle on the floor, and it's dripping and splashing. Oh, God, that's not good. And we were on our way somewhere. So my wife took off, and I had to stay behind and just, drain this tank, get all the fish out. In the process, I killed a little bronze cory. But anyway, so there's, 24 of these brothers and sisters. They're Betta-splendens. There's a couple big plecosauruses. There is one on the sponge filter there. Let me zoom. There we go. How's that? And then these guys want to get in the way. Yeah. Hey, look at me. What else is in here? There's about, I think, 11 Amano shrimp. And a lot of plants. There's one of those red, what do they call them? Tiger lotus right down here. And there's a bunch of Sagittarius subulata, the dwarf sag. Also, another one of those Cryptocoryne pontidaerifolia like we saw over here. These have been living in pots. They're doing all right. And I've got a couple in the substrate here, one there, and I think there's another one, I don't know, tucked in the back somewhere maybe. And also a bunch of Cryptocoryne wentii. And then these, and I'm going with Cryptocoryne eusteriana. And I know somebody else thinks they're Balanese, but I bought these down here as Balanese. There's one there. There's one there. One there. These are all Cryptocoryne Balanese or Balanese. Down here in the leaves. They're different. They're very different. And that's okay. So whatever. We'll get it sorted out. I've got a book that I kind of use as a horticultural Bible. It's called Hortus Third, Hortus Third. It's really good for genus and species. Somebody mentioned, well, you really can't tell until they bloom. And, mostly there's one of the big plecosauruses. Mostly that's pretty true, but occasionally there's enough with the leaf morphology you can tell the difference, and that's what I'm going with. And this bulbitis here. But these Cryptocoryne and the ones I'm saying are eusteriana, they spread by runner, not above the surface, just below the surface. And when I took this tank apart, I think I started with 2, and there are bunches now. So when I took it apart, they came out in huge long strings, and I separated them, just kind of replanted the tank differently. I tried to hide the sponge filter this time as best as possible. This is a sponge filter that I've modified, and I'll show you guys how I did that. I said I would. There is another bulb here. That's another one of the tiger lotus bulbs. I think it's still alive. Hopefully it'll sprout for me. What else is in here? Baby Groot. Baby Groot came from my granddaughter in Texas Christmas before last. So that would have been Christmas 2023. And then the whole family sent me this Dead Fish Tell No Tales last Christmas, 24. There are also 3 Corridora, the black Venezuelans or black Schultzii, Corridora Schultzii, I guess. There should be 3 of those in there. There were 7. I lost 4 just after about the first week that I had them. All of a sudden, 4 of them just dropped off. Not a clue why. And so be it. That's just kind of what happens. So anyway, that's on this side of this rack. Storage up top, the 5s, and I did those. Right, we already talked about those. And then we'll just go around this rack. It gets a little harder to shoot because it's a little narrow, right? We're in the garage. Oh, look at all the crud that builds up on this all this mulch. This is all pothos. My wife gave me, oh, she didn't. She actually pruned this huge pothos in the house, and I just grabbed a handful because she was going to toss them, I think. And I just shoved them in this tank here. And then they sort of dripped out of the tank, and then they went over, right, into the next tank. And then one piece here up and over. Look at the size of this puppy, right? And then back down here, right, up and over. And I don't know where it's going over there. Sort of reminds me of Jack's beanstalk. But anyway, in this tank, there's a couple autocinkless, and there's some albino crebensis. I don't know how many are in here. I got to take this tank apart completely. I want to get rid of these fishies as much as I like them. These are brothers and sisters with a crebensis on the other side from Bob and Carol. And there's a whole genetics thing there that people mention that I don't understand. So I'm not going to try and even talk about that. And then there's this tank. And this tank has been through a few iterations. But now it was, well, there's a Plecosaurus, because I started putting these in most places, because they really do help keep the algae down. They're pretty good cleanup crew. There are these Koi Kahaku swordtails. That's female. And she's finally out. She was such a big scaredy cat. I think that's her. Maybe that's one of their offspring that's not a big scaredy cat. But anyway, and there's the male, the original male. And then I've had, God, I bought 7 of these black mollies at PetSmart, and 2 survived. And then I had a couple fry that, I don't know, they didn't make it. So there's still these 2. And then there's these 2 black lyre tail mollies that I got from 5 Star Betta, Jason. And I bought, what did I get? 8 of these little ember tetras. I love these things. And I lost 1. And then next thing I know, I've got 8 again because there was a little fry in here, which is kind of cool. They're so tiny. They get a little bit. They get a little bigger, not a whole lot. Now you can see the little Koi Kahakus are swimming in with them. I don't know who's confused most, me or them. And then I got, this eyelash spawning mop, hoping maybe that's where they laid the egg or eggs. Maybe this, one of them hatched. And then, God, looks like there's more. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh my God, there's more. What a cool surprise. I am getting, that's, geez, surprise. You guys get to share that with me. There are way more of these little ember tetras than I started with. That is cool. I love that. I love those kind of surprises. And this tank has just been absolutely inundated with this nasty ass green hair algae. And yeah, I said that. And I've been pulling out. There was this huge clump across the surface, and I pulled most of it out. I've got a bunch of these corkscrew valsinaria that I got from Jody P, and I got to get them in substrate somewhere. And I didn't want to because they were inundated with, and I'm not sure if it happened, here, probably covered with that green hair algae. So I'm trying to get them cleaned up, and then I'll put them in other tanks. So I really don't want that stuff in other tanks. And this is a different valsinaria, and I'm not sure which one, that I got from Brandon over at Coachella Valley Aquatics that he gave me one time when I was in. I should just get him out of that dish and put him in the substrate. So I want to redo this tank too. I've got, pots of plants. I don't even remember what was in these. Obviously, it didn't work. I think it's one of the swords, Helenanthemum Vesuvius, the Vesuvius swords, that did not work. Don't know why. And then there's some crypts back there. That is, what do they call it? Hair grass. So, but I like that. And it's spread. It's spread right out of the pot, and it's slowly spreading in the substrate. So I seriously doubt I'm ever going to disturb the substrate just because that's surviving. And I've had a hard time with that stuff before. You can see the hair algae on top of this sponge filter. Another little Plecosaurus. They're so cute. You just want a little tickle their little bellies, don't you? So that's the 429 gallons, the middle rack. All right, so now we're done draining this whole mess. I've got the garden hose, the green garden hose, hooked up to that valve there coming up, and on a garden hose valve too, because I want to be able to shut that one off.
when I shut that one off, just to be able to take the hose off. Otherwise, I'm going to get water all over the place. It always leaks no matter what. It's leaking down there, and I hate that. And it's all these cheap garden hose fittings. So I'm going to cinch that up. Here, you can see it dripping. So now when I open this garden hose valve, comes up here, open that blue valve too, comes up here, it goes off that way to fill all the tanks on the bottom row, comes up here, splits off, goes down both sides to fill the tanks up top here. And in both cases, except the 2 5-gallon tank. They weren't here when I built the system, or I didn't think I needed it, and I regret that now. I've got this little Mickey Mouse system. I'll show you how I fill those 2 tanks. And then I always leave that valve open on the big tank here to relieve pressures so I don't blow anything here. Then when I open these valves down here, I got to make damn sure that I close them when I'm done. I left one open the other day. Next thing I know, I'm overflowing a tank. So even though that valve over there was open, still water coming out at this end. So let's get that started. All right, so I'm going to open this valve first, slowly. All right, so that fitting was loose going from the garden hose valve into the hose adapter valve into the drip. So this is open now, and we'll open this one, whichever way it turns. There we go. And it's coming out over there in the 55. So we're going to open these. I think I might have the pressure up too high, but you can see these are all dripping because they're garbage. And we'll open one of these. Yeah, and it's stopped over in the 50 or in the 75. And we'll open another one of these. Let 2 flow. And this is where I have to keep a close eye. And in fact, I'm going to open a third one. Oh, I just saw a blue dream shrimp. Yay. Yeah, so they're barely running now. One's trickling, but it slows them down, and it gives me a little bit of time to pay attention to what the hell's going on so I don't overflow stuff. So right now, all the other valves are off, the other water flow valves, except for that one over there on the 75. That's just there to relieve pressure mostly. Really don't need to. This valve is open here. No water coming out. I'll keep an eye on these. Then as one of these fill, it'll start coming out there, and I'll shut one of them. In fact, I could encourage this first valve to fill a little quicker by slowing this one down a little bit and getting a little water coming out of that one too. Kind of balance things out. And when it's all done, then I will go back and do the dechlor. I don't worry about dechloring during. I don't think that the chlorine or the chloramines are really an issue until the fish have been in it for a while. And I showed you how I go about dechloring with the other tanks, where I mix it in a little measuring cup. Make sure there's no granules out and about. This always brings the cories out. I think I got 9 species of cories now. More's better. I'll never catch up to Elfish or Cheryl. I don't really care about that. They can breed them like crazy too. My water, my climate doesn't really encourage that here. So it is what it is. Oh, here's the wild type mollies that are kind of showing. They're really pretty. I got these from Mexicali Fish Keeper. He got them out of the Colorado River. Kind of cool. And these are supposed to be all male tuxedo guppies that I had separated out. And you saw the other tank with what were supposed to be all females. Turns out there's males in there too, because I guess some of them were gravid. And I got to do some serious separating over there. I don't know if I'll ever catch up with that tank. So the yellow goldenback Neos, their tank's full enough now. So I'll shut that off. And it's just a quarter turn on the valve, and that puts a little more pressure coming down this way. And I'll open this valve one way or the other. These are the plastic clamps I use, and they all came apart. They're garbage, not good ones. This one's still trickling, so I can open this one a little further now. Kind of close off this third one a little bit. Encourage these 2 to fill. And I just find myself babysitting these so I don't overflow, because I will. I have a record of this. I didn't put any fill system. I could cut one in. Probably will one of these days for these 5. So I can't fit anything else in here really that I can think of. So I built this kind of Mickey Mouse thing, PVC, couple elbows. And what I do is stick it in here and stick it there. It's harder to do one-handed. And just kind of hang it in there. And it gets water coming eventually. There we go. And I'll just fill it that way. Still got a lot of water coming around. It's bringing water over here. And by the time one of these other 2 are filled, this will be filled. It's better than a sharp stick in the eye, I suppose. So there it's full. And I just pull this kind of down and out and try not to get it all over the floor like I just did. Thank God for garage concrete. And this tank, this is a mess. It was a big piece of Java moss with some green hair algae. Now it's mostly some green hair algae. There might still be some Java moss in there. I see a little piece. I got to try and save that if I can someday. And then this tank, Mickey Mouse platies. Oh my goodness, a bladder snail. We cannot have that. So I will catch that out by hand, and I might just treat this tank. I don't know where that would have come from. I don't know. I don't cement any other tanks, and that's good. So I will break out the no planaria and treat this tank. And it's a 3-day treatment. Follow the directions. Let's get that out of there. There's the orange Venezuelans right there. couple of them. Oh, they're coming out now. And that goes in the trash can. So now that these two tanks are just about full, I'm going to open one of the valves up top, take off some of the pressure. I'll open this one here with the crebensis. I'll get a little trickle, bled some water, but it opens some of the pressure. And that way, when I shut these off, whichever one fills first, it'll start flowing into this tank. And then I'll work my way around these 4 tanks, the 429s. And I will also do that same Mickey Mouse fill for this little 5. So I closed off that one. This one's just finishing up here. Took a little bit to get the water going uphill through all this system. And then I will shut this off. And I don't like to leave anything in the system closed because of those plastic valves that failed. Here, we'll shut that off now. And that way it's coming out up there. It's coming out hard. So I'm going to open up another one. I think I got the pressure up too high at the garden hose. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing with this thing over here to fill this. I guess the water change brings out the quarries. I've got, I can't remember, 7 or 8 black Schulte quarries in here. They are cool little fish. You just see the little dark spots in there. Really pretty. And again, I like them. I like them against that sand. This is pool filter sand. That's all it is. It kind of grays on the top. I guess it's probably sediments that have fallen, maybe colors the sand a little bit. A couple big plecosauruses in here. Lots of crypts. Again, it's either Pondidera folia or Eusteriana. This one and this one of the two. And Balanacea and dwarf sag, crypt Wentii. There's a red tiger lotus there behind the fishies. There's this Buikd fern. And it's a cool tank. This is the one that leaked. I did a video. Water was welling up along the front here. So it was leaking from one of the bottom seams or one of the corners. So I cleaned out all the corners about up that high and cleaned out the whole bottom and resealed it. And one of the edges looked bad. So I resealed it. I don't remember if it's this one or one in the back. I think it doesn't matter. But I did one whole edge and then all the way around the bottom. And then the other 3 corners up about 2 inches. Actually about a little more than the width of a single edge razor blade. So I get a razor blade in there and get it cleaned out. It's another bulb from the red tiger lily. Or lotus or whatever they are. And that's Baby Groot. That was a Christmas gift from my granddaughters a couple years ago, or my granddaughter Samantha a couple years ago. Christmas, what would that be? Christmas 23, I think. Oh, and this is from their whole family last Christmas. I was never much into ornaments. And I thought, what the heck? They're giving them to me. That's really sweet. There's a cool little terracotta pot back in there that my wife gave me. And this guy, I was on a stream with Jeff Pelham's Aquatics one night, and Jose Polanco of Joy of Fish Keeping popped in with us, and he's showing us his tanks. He lives in, God, I can't remember if it's Brooklyn or the Bronx. He's in New York. He's going through his tanks, and he's got one of these in his tanks. And I thought, oh, God, that's just crazy enough. I got to have one. So I think it was Walmart.com where I got the best price on it. And that's from, if I remember correctly, SpongeBob SquarePants. Never really watched it. That is an orchid pot with all the holes, where you put, the moth orchids in bark, and then they just kind of like root out, almost like an air plant, really, is what they are. And I just stuffed Java fern in the holes, and it's finally holding on. I did say I got a couple big plecosauruses in here. I had a couple, and I just used to move them. Well, they, I don't remember where they were. They were in a tank, and this tank got really inundated with blackbeard algae. I was watching, I think, one of Jeff's auctions, and Jason 5-Star Betta comes on, and he's talking about, his fish that he's selling at the auction, but he just mentions in passing that he's got this pleco or a couple plecos, and he just moves them from tank to tank. Take care of them. Brilliant. So I took the 2 that I had, and I put them in this tank. Blackbeard algae gone in about, 3-4 days. You could really see a whole marked, this wall was just inundated, clear, the whole thing clear. And then eventually they started getting pretty big. I put them in the tub outside because I had this really soft green algae, big, thick waves of it growing around the edge of the tub. I threw those in, and within a couple weeks, that tub was spotless. So then I bought, I think, 8 or 10 more of the plecosauruses. And I think I bought these 2 first, and I started moving them around. Then I just bought a whole bunch of them, and I put them in most of the tanks. Because, they're not fancy bristlenose, but oh my God, they do a great job cleaning up all the algae. So anyway, we're just about filled here. I can talk and overflow all at the same time. I think what I'll do is open that one. I'll just reach through and open it, and we still got water flowing, almost nothing there. So let's throttle this one down a little bit back in the back there and get the water coming back up here. I want to get that one full, and then we can shut it off completely. And remember that the big tank in the back is open still, and that's important. And then we'll finish filling these guys, and then we'll do the 75. I'll show you that one. And also let me throw in here, when I shut any of these down, and if I need to shut them all down and I don't want water coming out of the 75 back there, I go back to the hose fitting and I shut it off at the source there. That way I can do whatever I need to do, and I'm not worried about extra water coming out somewhere I really didn't want it to. So keep that in mind. All right, now I'm filling this side. And this tank has my Koi Kahaku swordtails in it. And hopefully there's a little stir-by Cory in here that was, I don't know, getting picked on in the other tank, the one with the peacock gudgeons and all. And there should be two black mollies, and there should be two black lyre-tail mollies, and at least one little plecosaurus on the side of that pot there. There's some, there they are, ember tetras. And I found an ember tetra fry in here, which was very cool. I think I started with 8 and lost 1. Next thing I know, I got 8 again. It's really tiny, kind of in the middle there. I'd point, but this is a really hard tank to shoot. There's not a lot of space between here. And then there's this mess on top. There's a bunch of corkscrew valve here just floating, and it's completely covered with this. And I don't want to pull it all out because I guess what I should do is just pull it all out and sacrifice some of the corkscrew valve, get rid of this stuff. I don't want to sacrifice too much of the corkscrew valve. So I'm going to have to pick it apart, and I'm going to try bleaching it. 1 part bleach to 20 parts water. See if it'll kill that algae. I'm under the understanding, does that make sense? No, that will work. I know it'll kill pests, and I don't know if I mentioned it already or not, but with the plants, if you get plants in from somewhere, you can use alum, regular cooking alum. It's a powder, and it's 1 tablespoon per gallon of water. So if you want to make a bigger bucket, like 5 tablespoons, 5 gallons of water, and soak plants in it for an hour, 2 hours overnight, and that'll kill snails. I think it'll also kill planaria and any other things that are living on the plants that you brought in from a vendor. So that's something to consider. That works really well. I did it for an hour with a bunch of hornwort. I was selling it, and I've got ram's horns in that tank. You saw that tank where the neon orange swordtails are. I put a handful of the hornwort in a bucket of water with about a gallon with tablespoon of alum for about an hour. All the ram's horns that were in the hornwort were on the bottom of the bucket. Bingo. So we're just waiting for these 2 to fill, and then we will go over to the big tank. And this tank are the albino crebensis. They're hiding back in there. They're really just big towers. And I've got to deal with this tank. We've got, well, my wife does. She's got, I don't know, it's like a 2-quart maybe mason jar. She's got this big jar with water and pothos in the house. And they've just gone nuts. And I top it off with fish tank water. I water all the houseplants with fish tank water. So she had this big bunch of them, and I just grabbed them. I think she was going to throw them out. I just grabbed the whole handful and put them in here. Well, they have rooted. They've gone that way, and a couple of them have gone that way, including this massive stem here. The size of that thing. Up and over and back. Look at the size of that thing. Oh, my God. Up and over, and is that happy? Is that healthy? So I don't know. Someday I'm gonna have to get out here with the gas-powered hedge trimmer. I think it's gonna take over the garage. So I shut off that tank, and now it's coming full force into this tank. I gotta make sure it's not flowing anywhere else because I did that the other day, and I had it overflowing somewhere. So these should all be shut down. And you can see that tank. I don't know if you can see that. That valve's dribbling. It's off. So that's what I mean about cheap valves. I don't buy those. Those are the Home Depot valves. So anyway, they're all off, so I should be safe. And water's just starting to flow out of this, and that's all right. And we'll get to this. As soon as we finish filling this tank, we'll start doing a water change on the 75 here. This tank, I think what I need to do here is I need to shut it off. That's one thing I need to do. And do some root pruning on this pothos. This tank really needs to be broken down completely. Okay, so now we're on to the 75. And the water's coming out of here full blast. And this is what I mean by a permanent drain line system that I was trying to duplicate with all this stuff over here. Over here, and you saw one of these screens before on my drain rig from the Graco Airless, and it goes up here, comes up and around through those elbows, comes down this piece of pipe on the outside to this T, and this T just goes there. It just supports it across here and comes across here, supports it there. So it really doesn't need all that. But there's a ball valve, and it goes in a hose fitting, so it goes out to the lawn. And so I open this, and it's draining. Now, when I built this, it was full of air. So I stuck a garden hose here, turned it on, opened this valve, let this whole thing fill with water, and it blew all the air out here. When all the air was out, it started flushing water into here. So I knew it was full. So now it's full. When I shut that off, it's always full. So when I open this valve, it automatically starts draining the tank. And it'll drain this tank all the way down to somewhere, wherever the lowest part of the pickup tube is here. So now I got water going out and water coming in. The kicker is trying to balance the two because it's real easy to overflow the tank and outpace more water coming in than going out, or vice versa. I'm a little hesitant to throttle this one down for a couple reasons. One, here, we'll see if we can show you the other way. Nope, yep, they stick. Golly, they shouldn't stick that much. So if I throttle it, it's like putting your thumb on the end of the hose. So the best thing to do is this. Go back to the source. Actually, outside would be better. And just throttle this down some. I cut that down by about half. If it's all the way perpendicular, it's off. So I cut it down by about half, and let's go see what we did. So that should have slowed the flow down some here. I've got this open full blast, and I'm leaking here. All these hose fittings always leak for them. So I tighten that up. Hopefully it'll stop leaking. Again, fortunately it's on the garage floor, but still. So what I want is ideally to balance the flow, and what I could do is just have the water shut off completely. Let this drain a ways and just do like a standard water change, and then shut this off and let it fill back up. In fact, maybe that's what I should do. Because of the way this tank's set up, there's this rock ledge, and I have to be careful about taking water down below the rock ledge because things will get stranded up there. I know I've stranded shrimp up there. I used to have Blue Dream shrimp in here once upon a time. So my wife just came out. I paused because she's way more important. I mean, I love you guys, but she's way more important. So she just reminded me I was on the shelf here, the rock shelf drowning shrimp. So yeah, and once upon a time too, had to be a dozen clown plecos in this tank. It's got to be about 8-9 months ago. I saw one first 2 weeks or so. I haven't seen any since. I can't imagine they all died. Usually when fish die, they come out and glow about it, so you'd see them in the front. I guess not. So anyway, I'm trying to get this going to where it's kind of balanced, and I'm just going to let it go like that. There's some stuff I want to do in this tank. I've got these two Akaino doors, one here, one here. I think they're the melon, and I'm going to take those out and put them somewhere else, and just let this dwarf sage make like a little lawn here. And I've got a couple of the crypts, the big tall crypts here that I put in. And those crypts, whatever they are, and I think they're Eusteriana maybe, they spread by runners quickly. They do really well. That's why I've got so many. And I started with a couple, and I got them originally from Tara's Tank Friends, and I haven't heard from her in a long time. I hope I didn't say something that, I hope she's well. Those two crypts, the Pontedera folia and Eusteriana, I got from her. And I also got some crypt pink flamingo from her. God, I hope I still got that. I don't know. They're tough, at least for me. They shouldn't be. And then I got that Anubias sort of tucked in the rocks there. It might actually be glued to a stone and set in there. And all these roots are all from this pothos up here. Right, and that thing's just gone ape doo-doo. And this big wad, I think I put half a dozen of these crypt Wentii, call them brown or bronze or red or whatever, and they've just gone nuts. Look at how many there are across the bottom here. I'm just going to come through and thin all this out. And then in the back there, that spirally wide leaf that's starting to die back for the season now, is another bulb called a Ponogeton. I cannot remember the species. I'll put it up. I'll find it and I'll put it up. Very cool bulb. There was a 5-pack of bulbs at PetSmart, the top pin bulbs. Mostly they're garbage because they're old, they've dried out, and that grew. And that I've had for 2 years now. So last year it grew, it flowered, and then I thought it was done at it just died out at the end of the season. It went deciduous. It went dormant. And then this spring, it came back up and it leafed out. And the leaves are really this beautiful bright apple green. And then it flowered 5 or 6 times this year. So it's a very cool bulb if you can find one. And I know there's different varieties of Aponogeton. And then around the corner here, more crypts. I thought I shoved the Amazon sword back in here. The crypts probably just choked it out, which is weird. The crypts back here, look at how thick they are. They just spread like wildfire. Saw those guppies, the tuxedo guppies. I put those in here. A couple people I know that have angelfish, and I have 2 angelfish there, Joe and Charlie. Joe's the female, the lighter colored one, and Charlie's the male. Where was I? Oh, the guppies. I put the guppies in because they said they put guppies in, and the fry provide a constant source of live food. Now, I haven't seen any fry because maybe they're live food right away. And I put in these black skirt tetras. I had 5. I lost one a couple months back now. And then I also put those in. They're hiding back there because all of a sudden they're big cowards. I bought those as lampi tetras at PetSmart. They were mismarked. Turns out they are Buenos Aires tetras. They're gorgeous. So on one of our live streams, I think it was Wednesday on Jeff's live stream on Pelham's Aquatics live stream, or no, maybe it was my live stream. Yeah, yesterday, Thursdays. I do it either Tuesday or Thursdays. I really got to get consistent. The Garage Aquatics live stream. And it's at 1:30 Pacific. And Jeff's is 12:30 Pacific. He had originally suggested take the Buenos Aires tetras out, put them in my 100-gallon tub out there, and put spawning mops in, and then every couple of days pull the spawning mops and put them in another tub or an aquarium or whatever, and put fresh spawning mops in. So just keep rotating spawning mops. And that's what these spawning mops are. There's one one there that I just made, a yarn one. And then this eyelash yarn. This came from Rachel, Buikd, and I will put her link in the chat. Reach out to her. She makes spawning mops. You know, she's part of the Fish Fam, and we like to support Fish Fam members. I want to see which one's going to work better. This eyelash will eventually sink down. The yarn one I squeezed a couple times, and it starts sinking right away. They're both acrylic, so acrylic lasts longer. And I've got a pair, another pair just like this one, and I don't know, 2, 3, 4 days. I'll swap them out and stick them in another tank. I've got a 10-gallon tank, I think I mentioned, I bought at the thrift store. We'll see what happens. And then what else do I got in here? There's some Brazilian pennywort. It's a stem plant. I do not do stem plants well. That stuff should be taken over the tank. Not so much. What else? There's another Anubias, I think, on the shelf up there. There's Christmas fern in here. That's what this big wad is, Christmas fern. It looks kind of manky, but it's cool. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So this was a fun project too. I cut all this rock with a skill saw, a carbide blade on a skill saw, and it took a long time. Big, heavy pieces, and I think it's a metamorphic rock, so it is really hard. Unlike, you know, sedimentary rocks or what are the other kind, igneous? That's pretty hard too. But anyway, sedimentary rock. I'll put the link in how I built this tank. I'll put that in the description. Now you can see how much the water is going down now compared to the amount of water going in versus the amount of water going out. With this, what I can do now is try and throttle this a little bit, slow it down, what's going out, let that water sort of fill. That shelf is starting to get high and dry, and I really don't want that to happen. I'm hoping maybe there's clown plecos back there. Maybe there's still blue dream shrimp in here, but everything in here, they would just smash little shrimp if they could. The little Buenos Aires tetras, they're like light. And same thing with these guys, the little black skirt and the angelfish. They're going to eat anything that comes their way. In fact, when I dumped the guppies in here, they killed a couple right off the bat. This has been sitting up here on the shelf, magnetized to the shelf for God knows how long. I think it's Richard, Go With The Flow Aquatics. They keep spawning on that, so I thought I'd throw that in there. Maybe they'll spawn on it for me, the angelfish. And I put these 2 pieces of PVC in, thinking the same thing. They've been in there for months. They're coming out. They're not doing anything. They look like hell. So I'll figure out something else, or these angelfish will never spawn. I know Jeff's angelfish are spawning on Amazon sword leaves. That would be convenient because you can just pinch the leaf out if you need to and put that in a fry tray and let them hatch out there. I do still need to clean both these filters. I have not done that yet. Usually I do that before I start water change, and I'm going to do that right now. I shut the outflow off. It's been running for a while, and it's still filling. Now, remember, when I'm done filling this, I'm going to not shut it off here. I'm going to leave this. So I'm going to go shut it off at the garden hose valve on the end of the hose over there. And that way, I don't blow a fitting, because I still haven't replaced all the stainless steel fittings. It was up here on top of this where it blew. What a mess. Water everywhere. And that's my wife's Christmas tree down here, and the box got just a hair damp. And fortunately, we're in the desert and things dry quickly. So we are just about full, and I cleaned these 2 filters. And that's why there's so much crud in the water, because usually I do that before I start a water change. But yeah, the water had gone down. I just opened the valve back up over there and let it drain some more, hoping that it would pick up a lot of that. And I'm sure it did. Finally got to the point where I just shut that off completely now. So now all I have to do is disconnect the garden hose and roll it up. And we are just about full here. Right, so I'm going to shut it off there. That's off. And I'm going to shut this off. And what this one will do, we'll keep this whole line from draining all over the floor. Not that it matters much, obviously. But that's it. So now we're full. Water changes are done. And I dosed all these tanks that we just water changed with the Seachem Safe. And I showed you how I did that on the other side of the fish room here, the other side of the garage. So that's this side here, right? And there's the rack, and there's that side there. So there you can get a better perspective of what's going on. Let me show you something. A couple days ago, I found this at a thrift store. I paid $10 for it, and there was a thick layer of peat moss in there that I just dumped out in the garden. And this little pagoda, and those 6 really cool little snail shells, all for $10. So I need to hose it out, clean it out. And I think what I'm going to do is put it right there. And I'll use that to dump off the spawning mops from over there, assuming I get any fry. We'll find out. We won't know until we start dumping spawning mops back and forth and see if anything hatches out. So I'll put, I don't know, maybe I'll put some guppy grass or some hornwort. I'll put some of that in this tank to help, to give the fry something. And if they start hatching out, I've got green water I can use to feed them at first, as well well as Hikari First Bites, and they'd have to get a little older. I've got the decapsulated brine shrimp eggs. Lots of microbes live in guppy grass and hornwort, so that'll provide a first good meal for them. So anyway, just wanted to share this little tank with you. This in there. So this tank is 20 inches by 10 inches front to back, 12 inches high. Turns out it's a 10-gallon tank, and I don't have a 10-gallon tank. Well, I didn't. I do now. Simple calculation to figure out gallonage. I'll put that up so you can see the arithmetic. There's two different ways to come to the same conclusion. So I need a sponge filter for this tank. I get these. They're box of 3s at Amazon, and I'm sure there's better deals somewhere. And it's the large size one. And I'm not going to put the uplift tube on it for right this second, just to show you what's going on. This is going to be how they work normally. I've got this, look at this cluster, you know what, over here of line. If I can get any air coming out of this, that would be a blessing. Okay, see, big bubbles. I mean, that's great, big bubbles. Let me turn it down. I need a valve on this line. That'll help. So I can adjust that. So this box comes with 3 pickup tubes, and there's 4 or 5 in there because I've been dumping them all. Comes with some air line. Comes with a little bag. There's a check valve, and there's one of these little gray valves. They're all right. And little suction tubes and a T, which can come in handy. I'll show you how I do this. The anatomy of a sponge filter. They're all mostly the same. All right, so it starts out with the cap. Now on the cap, there's a little nipple. Typically what you do is shove the air line through the uplift tube and onto this little nipple. Then this snaps back in, and this little hole this little part of the tube here, this little female part, receives the little nipple sticking up in the center here. All right. Air goes down. Let's get the sponge out of the way. Air goes all the way through that little pipe, goes all the way through, connects to the bottom one. Once again, goes all the way through, blows air, and there's little slots inside. Sometimes they're round holes, but these are little slots on this one, and it blows these big air bubbles up through here. And as the air comes back up, it draws water through the sponge, and in the water, it draws all the sediment, all the mulm and whatever else it's picking up, poop, leftover fishy food, etc. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. So typically what I do, I would cut both of these little center tubes out. Florist pruners work well, scissors work well. So here, this little center tube comes out, right? And this center tube connects to the center tube in this one. And this is where the cap sits. And this one, the bottom here, connects into the bottom base. And the bottom base is weighted, right? So it settles to the bottom of your tank. And as the air comes through, or is pushed through, it comes out of those holes, comes up in big bubbles. So that's what we're going to change. So there, like I was saying, there's a couple ways to do this. Now, typically I used to cut both of these sections out, and then I'd have to cut a little piece off here, and I'd use a utility knife and just push it on and sort of roll it back and forth on a piece of wood, and it would cut through this. It's soft enough plastic. And then I'd shove a piece of hose up on top of that and put this inside the cap here. But now what I'm going to do is leave that center tube in this one. It's just one less step. And I am going to take this airline, and instead of running it on this the center part of the top cap here, I'm going to run it through one of these 4 holes. I'm going to push it down there, pull it through. Then on what's going to be the upper piece, I will run the airline. I will run the airline through one of those holes, force that through there, twist it back and forth, whatever it takes, and there it comes. And then there's nothing to connect to in here. This is where the air stone comes in. Like that. And that sits down in here. So we put this bottom in, drop the air stone in, pull down the line, take the slack out, in other words, snap that in place, and then slide the cap down and snap that in place. The only thing we need to do is put the sponge filter back on. All right. So we've got it all adjusted as far as the right height goes. That air stone is actually touching that little nipple at the bottom. That would have been picking up this thing, right? That would sit on there like that. We get that out of there. We don't need that. So now what we do, shove the sponge filter back in there and press it all down, and we are good to go. Now, yeah, you can put the pickup tube on there if you want. So we can put the pickup tube if you want. I don't use them. I know there's pros and cons. People think they're really important because they get the air bubbles away from this. That doesn't make sense to me. You know, the air bubbles are moving up regardless of whether they're moving up from here or from 2.5 inches higher. That just doesn't work for me. I don't think that it causes a better draw. So let's plug it in and let's see if there's any difference between the bubble size, the flow. Every time I say bubbles, I think of that one fish in Finding Nemo in the aquarium at the dentist office. All right, well, there we go. Let me zoom in a bit here. So the one on the left is one right out of the box with the bigger bubbles. The one on the right is the one that we just modified with the air stone in it. So you can see there's finer bubbles.
The one thing I got going on here is just not enough air to supply all this. There's a paw fly up top. Everything on this side that's got air coming out of it is coming out of that paw fly, and it's just not enough. And one thing about those gray valves, I find themselves sort of kind of like walking themselves into an off position periodically. So you really need to keep an eye on those things. So anyway, I'm going to leave this one in here. And yeah, there's no beneficial bacteria in it. And who cares? There's plenty of beneficial bacteria in the guppy grass. And I can throw a little of the quick start, the API quick start in there. That'll help. I don't know. I was talking about putting fish in here. Maybe I will put the platies in there and leave the mollies, those wild type mollies, to themselves. And then I think I just need to get rid of that tank, those 2 tanks full of guppies. I'll consolidate them into the 120. I don't know. Maybe I'll consolidate them all into that 5 gallon for now. And hopefully I'll be able to save some orange sun-kissed shrimp that are still in there. And that tank I showed you with koi kahaku swordtails, there's a shrimp or 2 in there, the orange sun-kissed. So if I can get them out, get them all back in the 20 from whence they came, hopefully they'll do better. But anyway, that's how easy it is to modify sponge filters. I like it. Oh, look, there's a shrimp. So one hitchhike. I don't know what it is. It might be a red one. Hitchhike from the tank with the wild type mollies. Yeah, it looks red. Could be orange. Hard to tell. It's young. So anyway, that's kind of that. Well, I finally finished editing phase 2. So I thought the least I could do is put an outro together. Not sure how it's going to go. Just a quick review, I suppose. If you've stuck around this far to see the outro, I can't thank you enough. In this last part, then you saw me, the rack side here, and the 75 gallon behind me, and how I water change these, and the setup I have, and the problems, and I got to redo some stuff just to make it better. I'm going to see if I can maybe rebuild the drain system on this side, that alleged permanent drain system. The one on the 75 gallon tank works fantastically. All I got to do is hook a garden hose up to it because there's no place to drain it here in the garage. So I hook a garden hose up, drag it out to the front lawn, open the valve down here, and it drains the tank. Really easy. This should work too. Theoretically, it should work too. So I think what's going on is air is bypassing all the fittings on this drip irrigation stuff. So I've got the stainless steel hose clamp. I'm going to cinch them all up and recharge the system and see if that makes a difference. And then if that doesn't make the difference, then I think what it's coming down is the valves are leaking air around the valve itself. I've got one valve I showed you that keeps dribbling water. In fact, the last time I water changed was since I did this video, because this one's been in the making a while here. It took a long time to edit it and all. Been a water change or 2 in between. That end tank with the valve that dribbles, I ended up filling it like I always do. And then it occurred to me while I'm running the water for the upper tanks and for the 75, it's still dribbling. And in the past, it's actually overflowed because of that. So this time I ended up draining a bunch of water out of it and let it continue to fill up with the dribbling while I'm doing all the other water changes. And I drained it out. I just measuring cupped it out into a bucket. And that way all the water was right there. And it was already treated. Well, most of it anyway. So anyway, I could just pour the water I needed back into that. I could have just opened a valve too. You know, what are you going to do? I'm hoping that'll take care of that permanent drain system on this side because it would make things easier. Instead of having to go from tank to tank, all I got to do is open and close valves. That'd be nice. Maybe it's unnecessary. I put my drain rig in, open it up. That works too, except it's going to be a slow flow no matter what because it's so close to the ground. And the bottom row, the water has to go up and over the top of the tank and then out. So, it's fighting gravity, fighting Mr. Gravity. I've learned to respect gravity as I've gotten older. Anyway, I think that's probably about it. I really do appreciate you for sticking around this long. And as always, I want to say a great big thanks to my members. Your support is muchly appreciated. Muchly is muchly. Okay. Greatly, muchly, greatly appreciated. And then also to all of my subscribers, again, thanks for watching. And everybody else out there, thanks for looking. And if you haven't, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. That's always helpful. And I will catch you all on the next one. Thanks again.